Good morning. I'm Sarah. I'm just waiting for a few more people to join us. So the line will go a little bit quiet for a couple of minutes before we actually start the webinar. But thank you to those who have joined so far, and I will be back with you in just a few minutes. Just for those that have just joined, we are just waiting for a few more to dial in. So hence the reason for the silence, but we will be back with you a couple of minutes time. Okay, I think those that have joined have joined. Hello and welcome to this morning's, or maybe this afternoon, depending on where you are in the world, webinar from the Manufacturing Operations Management Institute. Today we will be talking about picking the right metric for MOM success. My name is Sarah Knight and I am the Global Education Programme Manager for MOMi. Just before I introduce you to today's presenter and get started, I'd just like to make you aware the webinar session is being recorded and the recording will be published on our website. If you would like a copy of the recording sent directly to you, please contact me and I can do that for you, no problem at all. You can ask any questions at any time via the question or chat box, or raise your hand so that you make me aware that you would like to engage in a conversation. At the end, we will have some time, hopefully around 5 minutes, for some Q&A, where today's presenter, Jan, will answer the questions you have entered. Also, we will unmute anybody so that if you would like to get involved in a live discussion, please do so. In fact, we encourage it. So I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to today's presenter, Jan Snoeij. Jan is President and Senior Business Consultant at MOMi and has over 35 years experience supporting manufacturers. He is also a MESA International Board member and a MESA Improved Instructor. So I will now pass you over to Jan. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Sarah, for your introduction, and good morning all, or whatever time you have today in your area. We know it's a global event anyway. So today we are talking about picking the right metrics for MOM success, and just a little bit of history, what we are doing at MOMi with respect to that success, because success is important for manufacturers. We have a series of webinars presented over the last year, and well, earlier last year, I would say, we started due to the corona pandemic impacting manufacturers, and of course way more than that, but also manufacturers, and what is good to do so. And we've seen that huge impact on the global economy, and we concluded that continued education of your people is key for continuing your digital journey in order to be more successful, and especially in these well, uncertain times, you can say. And now we are 1.5 years later, and still, well, it's not going bad overall, but still many companies are struggling. So it's still a necessity to educate people in order to be successful. And of course, you can put some metrics on that as well. I will come back to that. But also, I've been looking and sharing information with the audience about IT and OT convergence for a connected factory. And that convergence is enabling IIoT, this industrial Internet of Things, connecting machines, materials, whatever, in order to create a solid basis for smart manufacturing and for more success. Then we have been talking about using manufacturing maturity to create a focus for your improvements, because that's where it's all about. Your maturity is representing basically your performance as a manufacturer. And so that leads to a plan by this thorough assessment of your current maturity to improve further, that you focus at the right elements where you can make the difference. And not on this slide, we also shared best practice methodologies to select the right MOM tools for MES, for LIMS, etc. That enables or at least supports your success. Last but not least, I talked about user acceptance as a key for a successful manufacturing IT implementation, as a key for your success as a manufacturer. So we have been focusing at success in manufacturing all over, I would say, and that's what we would like to continue today. Of course, if you look at the manufacturers, the needs of the manufacturers have been evolved over time. However, still we are transforming raw materials into valuable products, and that's something we should not forget. Of course, the scope has been broadened by opening up the whole entire world, I would say, end-to-end supply chain as depicted on this slide. In the end, it's about the consumers at the right-hand side. If they are happy with our products, then they will buy, they will pay, and we can do our business successfully. But we have to manage, on one hand, our entire supply chain. If we do a great job as a manufacturer, but our partners in our supply chain are not that great, let me put it mildly, then our consumers may go somewhere else. So it's not only us, it's all of us in our supply network together. Still, we need to perform as a manufacturer maximally, I would say, because otherwise our partners will turn away from us. So all of us need to do a great job. So the scope has been broadened. It's beyond the four walls of our factories. If you look at this, and what is success, of course, in manufacturing, you can ask that question, and what is key for that? What is, well, of course, in general, success is the accomplishment of what we try to achieve, our goal, our aim, and we have initiatives for that, deliberately, focused, intentionally. It's part of our strategy. If you look at MOM project, manufacturing operation management projects, of course, you talk about the scope, resources, quality, the schedule, that we are in time, the risks you have to mitigate and avoid, and of course our budget, because we still at the end we want to have a return on investment, so our cost should be within budget at least. But more importantly, I would say it is that our MOM systems, our MOM initiative, must enable or support our operational and business goals to achieve those. And of course, these are different for every company. Every company has its own goals or its own strategy. It's important to keep in mind. And then the question is, of course, how is operations contribute to that success, to that achieving that strategic goal? And so, despite the fact that the project is temporary, I hope the effect of it is continuous and long-lasting. That the initiative is not only, well, helping you during the time of the project, but it's well, also for the future. To start with, it is important to have smart objectives, and that has nothing to do with smart manufacturing. There's something else that's more advanced technology. So, but just an old, well, law, you can say, specific, measurable, acceptable, realistic time. It's all important. Too often, I come across customers or companies I'm working with that it's not completely clear. Maybe the management has a clear idea, but the rest of the organization, if you ask about it, they don't know precisely what the goal is, so they can't help to achieve the goal properly. That's something that is important. It's about also communication, that everyone is on the same page in a company. and also know where we are today and what the next steps have to be in order to achieve our strategy. And so that's an important starting point. And as I said before, we have a strategy as a company. We know as a company how we want to be successful. That's our business. And in order to achieve that goal, we need requirements. We need to do certain things. And of course, if manufacturing has to contribute to that, well, operation has to contribute. There are requirements. We have to do it in a certain way. And of course, if you do look at our tools, OT, information technology, or operations technology, automation, it's all the same. It needs to fit into that strategy, into that picture. So we talk about processes, our way of working, the applications and the technology and the organization. And don't forget the organization, the people are an important part there. That's what we have to look at. And if we, of course, there are all kinds of principles and priorities and issues we have to deal with. Of course, we have a current situation as is. And if we compare that with D2B, where we want to go to, if you have a clear picture where we want to be 3, 5, or 7 years from now, then we can design a step-by-step plan, a roadmap towards the future. And every step in that roadmap will contribute, will bring benefits bottom line. That's important. And I talked about, I introduced that the title of this webinar is Success and Metrics. Well, metrics can only help you if you know what you want to achieve. And that's exactly where you start with if you create that plan. Every step has goals. You want to, and in order to achieve those goals, you have to do something differently. You have to change, you have to improve. And those things need to be monitored. That's important. And in order to do this in a proper way, from the very start, you have to keep that in mind. What is great today already? What are our best practices? What do we want to keep? And that's depicted in the center of this schema. That green circle, that's our company. And we have great things we want to keep, because, or even do more often. Then we will improve. We need to change things because they are not so great, or even bad. If you put it black white, we want to do better. We have to change, but also we have the opportunity, especially in these years, the last 5, 6 years, I would say, new technologies, new methodologies are being introduced, are becoming available. We can innovate and maybe even start new business models, etc. And that's also what we see in the last 1.5 years, more specifically because of the pandemic. Companies are forced, in many cases, to do a different thing, to change their business model, and therefore, well, they need an agile organization with everything in it. And that's important. So start with the explore, create awareness, not only at management level, but basically all of us in our company. Identify our potential, what we want to improve, how we can improve by either doing our best practices more often or change our ways of working or innovate. And of course, the people should be part of that. That's the start of it. Then we can identify these are the things we want to do better. Okay, this is change, and change we can monitor and we can measure, I hope. And that comes back in the next step of this business change cycle and the control of it. Create the benefits case and create this high-level architecture where we want to be 3, 5, 7 years from now, and a step-by-step plan at a high level. And if it sounds attractive enough, then we say, okay, this is feasible. Then we go ahead and detail all those things, detail the business case, detail those elements, how to work, how to change our ways of working, how to change maybe our organizational and structure and governance. Maybe we have to educate and train people because their capabilities, what they are able to do, need to be expanded or changed because we are doing new things, other things, etc. And of course, the technology is part of that. And then we can select the right tools, update the business case, because then we know what the cost is, and if that's a solid business case, we go forward with that. We execute, we deploy, we start working in that new, improved way, and after a while, you can evaluate that we indeed realize those benefits we were after. This is that cycle, and so we have to identify those improvements from the beginning, because these are key to apply the right metrics to monitor our progress with respect to realizing those benefits. That is key for metric selection in the end. Of course, there are other structured approach. We know about the Deming Circle, and that helps us as well. The Plan, Do, Check, Act. DMAIC is, of course, also a quite well-known one. But if you have this Plan, Do, Check, Act, that's nice. We can improve and we can do that continuously. But one thing is for sure, we have to take care that that we secure those improvements, that we don't roll back, as you could say in this picture, to the lower levels where we came from. And that's also included in the DMAIC. That's a well-known methodology, combined with especially Six Sigma and Lean. It's define your scope, measure what your current situation is, your current level of performance, analyze the root causes for, well, where are we able to do better, and why aren't we doing that yet? And then try to set up the ways of working, the organization, the people, skill sets, and our technology in such a way, in an aligned way, that we can improve indeed, intervene in our process, and then of course apply that control that we stay at an elevated level of performance. That's quite important, I would say, what is key for and most often forgotten. People start enthusiastically with the first steps of an improvement initiative, and then for whatever reason it fades away more or less. And some improvements are realized, yes, but if you do this in a structured way from beginning to end, including those controls, including that securing of the benefits, that is making the difference. And that's something you can have to do. Also, if you look at justification, it's something which I borrowed from the MESA training program, by the way, and it's also published in a MESA white paper. It's important that you identify upfront the benefits you potentially can achieve. And management is always asking for the business case. What's the return on investment of this initiative? Well, yes, that's a good thing to do for that reason, that you know there is a business case, but also it leads to metrics. Because you know what you're going to change, then you can put a metric on that to measure, to monitor that change. And that is important, whether you have a high-level approach that you don't know about the details that much, which is the macro ROI approach, based on estimated improvements, I would say, at rather high level, maybe at site area, maybe a line, but you know, it is still essential, and you can look at it and use those metrics basically to first of all determine your current level of performance, but also monitor the improvement, that you are really in control. And also, if you have the detailed approach, that you know more about all the nitty-gritty details of your processes, and you know about your waste stream, your variance points, according to Lean and Six Sigma, and then you can pinpoint that. Of course, that's the optimal situation, that you know that, and you can design in detail your new way, your improved way of working, and also design that metrics framework. The new metrics, that they pinpoint your focus at the right places in your process. That is important. So the selection of the right metrics to monitor success depends also on your justification approach. If you have only the high level information, well, then you are less accurate. Still, you can do something like OEE kind of metrics, but it's still high level. If you have the detailed metrics, that will point your people anywhere in the process, and for everyone who's involved in there, how well we are performing, and if it's not that good, then you know immediately where to look and correct that. So metrics are dependent on your processes and your initiatives. So there is not a general set of metrics that is applicable to everybody, to any company. And also to look at this, there are a couple of methodologies how to construct a proper coherent set of metrics. And basically, based on this example, this is the Volman decomposition, as it's been called. At high level, for example, we want to increase our brand margin and value. So the net margin per brand is the financial metric we look at high level. Well, if you go look in this picture, so that's the high level thing. If we go to the right hand side, we can lower our production cost. At least that's an effort we can try to do. How to do so? Well, of course, if you can reduce the energy consumption per unit, then it will lower our production cost, it will increase our net margin per brand. Also, OEE, it's still a mid-level metric. Something underneath lower levels, but just for the argument's sake, you can look at OEE. Basically, an improved OEE tells you that you are producing more good products from the same resources. You get more out of them. Of course, you can. That will also lower production costs, etc. First time right, same story. Less waste, and it will help you to lower your production costs, and will help you to increase your net margin per brand. And that's true for all these elements. This is just an example of an evaluation. Bottom line, it comes down to, if you change in resources being people, being equipment, being materials, in your and energy, definitely in your process, that will lead to a change in cost. So if you consume less resources to produce the same amount of good products, then you have a lower cost and a better margin, of course. The definition of these metrics is from top to bottom. But of course, the implementation, it all happens on the shop floor. That's where we do the thing. And that's where we have to look at in order to improve. And that's how we can define our metrics with the aim that we are focusing at the right things in our operations, that we know where to look at. All the things that are going well automatically, well, don't bother, I would say. It's the exceptions to the rule where you have to look at, and it may vary over time. Another way of creating a metrics framework, that's the MESA, the methodology for manufacturing metrics construction. There's a white paper, as you can see. There's a guidebook even from MESA. You can get it from them, and it's a structured methodology approach from high level. I'm not going to explain this, because if I want to do that, I need the whole day and to go through all the steps. But in the end, it is a top-down analysis using that same form and decomposition I showed you in the previous example, from level 4, so your supply chain and business and financial metrics, down to the metrics at the shop floor, level 0, 1, and 2, and create those level 3 KPIs, which we are using in manufacturing operations. But there's a second stage, a very important stage, that we have a bottom-up iteration in order to apply weight to the KPIs, the operational KPIs, that we know what is really important, what is really making the difference and leads to a positive effect, and what is less important. And that we know where to focus at, because that will help us to select better or create better metrics, which helps us in our daily operation. I'll end this webinar with 3 examples. For the people in the Netherlands, this is probably a familiar picture. It's the coffee factory in the Netherlands from Douwe Egberts in Utrecht. And it's a long time ago, but it's a nice example. And you can see the date, 2001. Douwe Egberts is a coffee producer, produces premium brand coffee. So that must taste great, but also the outside pack must look nice. Otherwise, people are not paying the extra money for that great coffee. And so the quality department of this company takes a sample, or took samples, I must say, in the past, every 30 or 60 minutes, dependent on the type of packaging line. And every Wednesday, they reported about the calendar week before, because they have metrics that is how much was great quality, with a score of 10, it was good, it's with a score of 8, it is just okay with a score of 6, and then they had scrap over rework and scrap, and of course that was not good. But the operators, the packaging operators in this case, were really frustrated. They were blamed for producing scrap and rework, but they couldn't do anything about it, because if they were told on Wednesday what went wrong a week ago on average, you know, that doesn't help. So I was talking to these guys and they were telling about the frustration and said, well, you must have an idea how to improve this. Yes, we have. And what we have done, so of course the idea, the objective was to rework and scrap, to reduce that. And how we've done that, well, provide immediate feedback to the operators. And yes, we have metrics on scrap and rework, they were already there, but now the immediate feedback to the operators, those who can make the difference. And what we have done is that, well, they asked for it actually, to do that they do the checks, the tests of the outside back properties themselves. Now, what you typically see is that if this is the situation, you see it as 10.886, and then of course they took action. They know what to do. And from day one, there was zero scrap and rework anymore. And quality department didn't have to do any tests. So it was a perfect result from an operational perspective, from production and production quality. And quality department had less work. They didn't believe right, by the way, but it did work that way. Another example is from medical device manufacturer and large complex equipment. And they deployed an MES application in order to support and better inform their people in operations. Well, what we've done, the objectives is to reduce the cycle time, rework, of course, waste, the cost of poor knowledge of people that you have to ask and redo things, but also they need to create a device history record because they have to prove that everything went all right and it's done according to the regulations. And there was an awful lot of time involved. It was manual writing on paper, storing the paper, a lot of work. And also to improve the inventory accuracy because parts and components all over the place, you could say, but it was quite well organized, but they didn't know because only you can see it when you're close to it. And what we did is, of course, capture all those data in an MES, and then it becomes available to all MES users. And way better insight in what really helped. So what we've done is that with paper-based DHR, the device history record, where it becomes an electronic version, and work instructions were there. And we had metrics for cycle time, rework, the frequency and time spent, waste, etc. And what the result was in the end, the metrics showed the progress that they were better focusing and tuning of their improvements, and the significant direct savings to get rid of the paperwork and everything that's connected to that, and it was 500K, and also a reduction of working capital by 5%, which is significant money. So also what appeared is that this information they captured, they collected during production, during manufacturing, they could also use that when this heavy equipment was implemented and installed at clients. A better after-sales service was also enabled by this. The right metrics to improve based on your MOM solution. That's where it's all about. A final example is about a fine chemicals producer. In this case, the situation was that the operation was complaining that it had to wait for the lab tests. Because if they have done something, a sample was taken, was brought to the lab, and they had to wait too long. And yeah, as long as there is no green light from the lab that the test was okay, they had to wait, and so it was blocking production. And then they called the lab, where's my result? When I want to continue, etc. You know how that goes. Of course, the objective is reduce production throughput time, create better utilization of the available capacity in that way. And how? Well, MES and LIMS were involved, MOM solutions, timestamps were taken. That when was a sample taken, when was it evaluated or tested, when became the result available, and of course these kind of things, just to provide insight and visibility of the real process. And we had metrics on duration about these kind of things, and also if the sample was taken, that automatically the message was sent to the lab. The sample is coming, please make time available because this is something urgent, etc. But also the other way around, if the lab had done the test, that there came a message through MES and the LIMS MES connection to the operator, this is the result, you can continue, or you have to do something else. It depends on the result, of course. Well, In the end, it appeared, because we made it visible, that the delays were caused by both production and lab. And the throughput time reduction, that was the result, of course, because we made it visible, then people could act on it, and we created increased productivity. Also increased productivity in the lab, because there were no disturbing calls anymore. Just some examples how metrics are focusing people's attention and actions to the right things. Summarizing, and maybe disappointing you that there is not a single set of metrics for everyone. No, metrics must be specific for your goals, in your situation, your operations, in order to help you to improve. And identifying the right metrics starts with identifying your goals, your improvement potential, basically, the things you want to do better. And metrics must show the progress to every individual element of your business case. It must be actionable. You have to be able to act, to do something with that information the metric is providing to you. And that's became very clear with the coffee factory example, I would say, but also the others. They must help your people to take the right decisions, to do the right things, the right actions to further improve. I'm sorry that I ran over a little bit, but this is my story for today. If you have any questions, well, please ask them now or later. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. We have run over just ever so slightly, but there is one thing that stood out for me this morning, and that was something relating to the metric around energy consumption. Now, my assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, that would at the moment maybe be to do with saving costs on energy. However, you know, there's a lot of talk about climate change and things we can do to improve the way in which we operate. So do you think that we should have metrics for sustainability, so making us more green or reducing our emissions, and how would that affect our operations, do you think?
I think that it's a great idea, and I'm happy to say that my observation is that more and more companies are explicitly doing this. You know, of course, it should be a strategy of the company to become more sustainable. Let me put it that way. And many companies have, because, well, it is more or less we are obliged to do so. They're getting more laws and regulations for that. So absolutely true. That should be part of our metric set, of at least part of our goal setting, our strategy. And many companies are doing that, and more and more you see this happening. I think personally, I think it's still heavily driven by cost of energy. Cost is going up. So if we can reduce our energy consumption, that will help in a great way. Of course, next to that, you can think of other things to have, well, greener versions of energy. Where's the energy coming from? But yeah, primarily, I think it is always helping at the cost side. And maybe that's for many companies the most important driver. But overall, yeah, you're right. We have to, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I am aware that we have run over, and there are many questions we could ask. So I will put the questions together and send them out in an email with the answers. And as Jan said, if there are any questions that you would like to direct directly to him or to me, Jan's contact details are on the screen now. And I will reach out to you in the next couple of days with copies of the slide decks and the link to the recording if you would like to share it. So to not keep you for any longer, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Jan, for sharing that knowledge. And we look forward to welcome you to another event soon. So thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.